Thank you. Cheers. Alright, big thank you to Jasper for having us back in the north. Thank you. The snowman's called Chamber for Drill.
The song's called Jasper's
Chamber for Drill.
Chamber for Drill. Jasper's a beat.
No, we all know that one. I know I'm going to say number 4.
The Trades Club Revival was a public artwork which initiated the revival of a traditional working man's club in the town of Sligo on the west coast of Ireland. The project proposed and initiated the utilisation of the space and ethos of this defunct social space with the assistance of a group of voluntary participants, a community of interest. The refurbishment of the semi-derelict space was completed with the assistance of this voluntary workforce, and in the process, a small board of directors emerged to formalise the club and maintain its operation for the following 12 months.
Just like blaming your problems on somebody else. Let's go skateboard.
Together with committee members of the Sligo Trades Club, the artist presented an exhibition of documents and memorabilia associated with the extensive history of the club, along with a series of events, readings, music performances and gatherings. Currently, the renamed Open Trades Club operates as an organisation without a premises, whose members organise public events and activities. The artwork revived this location with its connections to a shared history and reimagined the ideology of belonging and self-determination from which it was founded. The Trades Club Revival traces a fault line across the town of Sligo. Originally a centre for social activity run by volunteers, the club was famous for its gigs, folk sessions and leisurely pursuits. In the way of such things, it had its share of disapproval from those who perceived it as a den of iniquity, where temptations were made reality. In other words, it was a success. It was opened in 1870 as the social wing of the growing trade union movement, a social space for its members and their families to mix and entertain themselves. As such, its activities reflected the times and concerns of its members. In 1930s Ireland, the recently established Free State saw a huge rise in food prices. Milk was at a premium, and many infants were nursed on tea. In response to this need, a milk committee was formed and operated out of the Trades Club. 2 fields and a herd of cows were acquired, and the resulting milk was divided among its members. Activities such as the Charles Atlas-inspired weight training group and the 1960s folk music happenings of the Candlelight Club were accommodated. Billiards and snooker were played, theatre productions staged. A thriving Irish music revival grew out of the hugely successful weekly Kyotos sessions that took place in the club for almost 30 years. In 1960, Barbara McLynn, a local school teacher, became the first female member of the Trades Club. Other women had entered the club prior to this, but this was very much frowned upon before the 1960s.
Thanks, Thank you.
I said, in case I lose it, right. Good luck, I said. Good luck with the launch. I got on the 10 o'clock train, humming happily, met a conductor and asked him was the bar open, no problems. I got a bottle of stout, settled down in the seat opposite a young businessman reading the Irish Times, bade him good morning, spoke to two women and a man and we left. We all broke into conversation and we talked of what we did in the real life. And I was about to pop my new book out of his bag and I heard in the distance, tickets, please. I got my ticket ready, coward.
The building itself was an amalgamation of received and incidental spaces, with furnishing and decoration donated by its members. The bricolage and detritus of previous social spaces, remnants of discarded barroom furniture, formica tabletops on box iron. The bar was built from discarded church pews, the walls strewn with montage of club members in session. 100-year-old pike adorns the front room as a totem for the liquidated. Operating for more than 100 years, a litany of anecdotes, stories, and semi-truths churned their way out of the club and into the public imagination. From the watchmaker who was thrown down the stairs by the Black and Tans, to the secret compartments used to hide refugees from the law. Late-night sessions were frequented by artists, poets, musicians, tradesmen, activists, punks, students, and politicians. A motley crew of despots and the dignified, organizing, facilitating, and frequenting the club until an inability to pay debtors and maintain the premises, along with a degree of internal political upheaval, forced the club to close its doors in 2005. The ideology of the original Trades Club's foundation, far from being a bourgeois vision of semi-public space, attempted to coordinate a totalitarian socialism around the reorganization of the labor force. Without this zeal of revolutionary commitment, how might a continuity with this ideology be maintained or revived within our own contemporary moment?
Embarrassing journey I was ever on. It was my first book launch.
Members of working men's clubs were deemed equal, regardless of their status beyond its doors. And this ethos is rooted in the history of European guilds, where tradesmen could share secrets of their craft, agree prices in resistance to market forces, and gather funds to help each other in times of hardship. The atmosphere of equality permitted the free expression of thought, and this was also regularly accompanied by a generous sense of hospitality and celebration, which encouraged that free expression. These trades clubs and guilds were designed to protect and bond their members against the wider forces of society in an economic context. They can be seen as early models for trade unions, and in a social context as fomenters of radical thought. A politics of place of any adequacy must deliberately disrupt, through acts of movement, reoccupation, and contact with the world beyond the confines of its own borders. We need to be improper and inappropriate in the places where we belong and don't belong. The neighbourhood, or in this case the club, is designed to keep the world and its social systems at bay, protecting its inhabitants. At the same time, the general freedom it permits within its walls becomes a source of annoyance and provocation to the various social forces denied entry.
Because the stranger is making game of us, St. Pikes for them won't no fear no dread. Our major came at a time of daybreak. We weren't prepared with our pipes as one, like white sheep nearing a shepherd cheering all the sunny side slopes of Sligo. The Frenchman's rallying, his sharp hands he's steadying, his topsails bending at the sea wide. His frequent secrets means our highly seeking, and for games you'll see once more in power and style. Could I believe that he's not deceiving? My heart won't be weaving like the lack of dawn to down
The structural instability of capitalist production maintains a sense of insecurity in an ever unstable workforce. As traditional career-based employment succumbs to a jobs market based on temporal market-driven need, it has become increasingly difficult for an individual to maintain a permanent sense of identity within the workforce. The situation arises in which workers or individuals turn to their community, or more importantly, cultural environment, for a more fixed sense of self and of belonging. Consensus, identity, fraternity, solidarity, and unity are no longer trusted concepts, but appear instead to guard the borders of exclusion, conceal internal divisions, enforce conformity, and hegemonically reinforce privilege and power. We are hospitable to family, friends, neighbours and allies, an extended conception of community based on the interest attached to a place. And we are hostile to foreigners, strangers and enemies, or all those who do not belong. Kant suggested an alternative that cuts right through the logic of this dichotomy, stating that hospitality means treating strangers as friends. What's more, Kant claims that every community has a moral imperative to be hospitable. In Kant's thinking, the stranger-stroke-friend division is sublimated by overcoating it as a guest-stroke-host pairing. So, instead of the stranger and the friend being regarded as opposites, Kant sees hospitality as converting one into the other. Two strangers do not encounter one another as hostiles if one is allotted the role of the host and the other is afforded the role of the guest. But the allocation of these roles carries with it a politics of place. It is the person who belongs that has a right to be host, and the person who does not belong who is fortunate to be regarded as a guest. Derrida argues that hospitality is not the absence of hostility, but one form in which the hostility between strangers is expressed. Hospitality renders a community porous, but on terms designed to safeguard the authority of those who belong, and establishing the conditions under which those who do not belong might have temporary but inferior rights of access. Hospitality is preferable to out-and-out hostility, but it is not the cure for the conservative notion of community. we need to think beyond hospitality. Places are always linked to the wider world and are gateways through which everything around it can pass. A place, therefore, is always a meeting place. But how is this social encounter of the meeting to be understood, given that hospitality does not adequately overcome the hostility to strangers? We need to develop a concept of place, along the lines that a post-capitalist mode of production imagines economics. The Marxist economist Andrew Kleiman makes the startling point that credit and debt will be impossible in communism. Just as you cannot lend money to yourself or be in debt to yourself, you will not be able to borrow or owe under conditions in which collective ownership has been universalized. Ownership here resembles belonging. So if we can abolish debt through collective ownership, then we can imagine abolishing hospitality through collective belonging. We know from the history of land use before the enclosures that it is impossible to be a host or a guest within the commons. The question we are left with is, what kind of meeting might art foster if it anticipates a future in which neither host nor guest have a place?